Chapter 33 of the Red Fairy Book. This is LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Kayla Bernhard. The Red Fairy Book by Andrew Lang. Chapter 33. Snowdrop. Once upon a time, in the middle of winter, when the snowflakes were falling like feathers on the earth, a queen sat on a window framed in black ebony and sewed. And as she sewed and gazed out to the white landscape, she pricked her finger with the needle, and 3 drops of blood fell on the snow outside. And because the red showed out so well against the white, she thought to herself, "Oh, what I wouldn't give to have a child as white as snow, as red as blood, and as black as ebony." And her wish was granted. For not long after, a little daughter was born to her, with skin as white as snow, lips and cheeks as red as blood, and hair as black as ebony. They called her Snowdrop, and not long after her birth the queen died. After a year, the king married again. His new wife was a beautiful woman, but so proud and overbearing that she couldn't stand any rival to her beauty. She possessed a magic mirror, and when she used to stand before it gazing at her own reflection and ask, "Mirror, mirror, hanging there, who in all the land's most fair?" it always replied, "You are most fair, my lady queen. None fairer in the land, I ween." Then she was quite happy, for she knew the mirror always spoke the truth. But Snowdrop was growing prettier and prettier every day, and when she was 7 years old she was as beautiful as she could be, and fairer even than the queen herself. One day when the latter asked her mirror the usual question, it replied, "My lady queen, you are fair, 'tis true, but Snowdrop is fairer far than you." Then the queen flew into the most awful passion, and turned every shade of green in her jealousy. From this hour she hated poor Snowdrop like poison, and every day her envy, hatred, and malice grew, for envy and jealousy are like evil weeds which spring up and choke the heart. At last she could endure Snowdrop's presence no longer, and calling a huntsman to her she said, "Take the child out into the wood, and never let me see her face again. You must kill her, and bring me back her lungs and liver, that I may know for certain she is dead." The huntsman did as he was told, and led Snowdrop out into the wood. But as he was in the act of drawing out his knife to slay her, she began to cry and said, "Oh, dear huntsman, spare my life, and I will promise to fly forth into the wide wood, and never to return home again." And because she was so young and pretty, the huntsman had pity on her, and said, "Well, run along, poor child," for he thought to himself, "The wild beasts will soon eat her up." And his heart felt lighter because he hadn't had to do the deed himself. And as he turned away, a young boar came running past, so he shot it, and brought its lungs and liver home to the queen as proof that Snowdrop was really dead. And the wicked woman had them stewed in salt and ate them up, thinking she had made an end of Snowdrop forever. Now when the poor child found herself alone in the big wood, the very trees around her seemed to assume strange shapes, and she felt so frightened she didn't know what to do. Then she began to run over the sharp stones and through the bramble bushes, and the wild beasts ran past her, but they did her no harm. She ran as far as her legs would carry her, and as evening approached she saw a little house, and she stepped inside to rest. Everything was very small in the little house, but cleaner and neater than anything you can imagine. In the middle of the room there stood a little table covered with a white tablecloth, and 7 little plates and forks and spoons and knives and tumblers. Side by side against the wall there were 7 little beds covered with snow-white counterpanes. Snowdrop felt so hungry and so thirsty that she ate a bit of bread and a little porridge from each plate, and drank a drop of wine out of each tumbler. Then, feeling tired and sleepy, she lay down on one of her beds, but it wasn't comfortable. Then she tried all the others in turn, but one was too long, and another too short, and it was only when she got to the 7th that she found one to suit her exactly. So she lay down upon it, said her prayers like a good child, and fell fast asleep. When it got quite dark, the masters of the little house returned. They were 7 dwarfs who worked in the mines, right down deep in the heart of the mountain. They lighted their 7 little lamps, and as soon as their eyes got accustomed to the glare, they saw that someone had been in the room, for all was not in the same order as they had left it. The first one said, "Who's been sitting on my little chair?" The second one said, "Who's been eating my little loaf?" The third one said, "Who's been tasting my porridge?" The fourth said, "Who's been eating out of my little plate?" The fifth said, "Who's been using my little fork?" The sixth said, "Who's been cutting with my little knife?" The seventh said, "Who's been drinking out of my little tumbler?" Then the first dwarf looked around and saw a little hollow in his bed, and he asked again, "Who's been lying on my bed?" And the others came running around and cried when they saw their beds, "Someone has lain in ours too." But when the seventh came to his bed he started back in amazement, for there he beheld Snowdrop fast asleep. Then he called the others, who turned their little lamps full on the bed, and when they saw Snowdrop lying there they nearly fell down with surprise. "Goodness gracious!" they cried, "what a beautiful child!" And they were so enchanted by her beauty that they did not wake her, but let her sleep in the little bed. But the seventh dwarf slept with his companions 1 hour in each bed, and in this way he managed to pass the night. In the morning Snowdrop awoke, but when she saw the 7 little dwarfs she felt very frightened, but they were so friendly and asked her what her name was in such a kind way that she replied, "I am Snowdrop." "Why do you come to our house?" continued the dwarfs. Then she told them how her stepmother had wished her put to death, and how the huntsman had spared her life, and how she had run the whole day till she had come to their little house. The dwarfs, when they had heard her sad story, asked her, "Will you stay and keep house for us, cook, make the beds, the washing, sew and knit? And if you give satisfaction and keep everything neat and clean, you shall want for nothing." "Yes," answered Snowdrop, "I will gladly do all you ask." And so she took up her abode with them. Every morning the dwarfs went to the mountain to dig for gold, and in the evening, when they returned home, Snowdrop always had their supper ready for them. But during the day the girl was left quite alone, so the good dwarfs warned her, saying, "Beware of your stepmother, she will soon find you are here, and whatever you do, don't let anyone into the house." Now the queen, after she thought she had eaten Snowdrop's lungs and liver, never dreamed but that she was once more the most beautiful woman in the world. So stepping before her mirror one day she said, "Mirror, mirror, hanging there, who in all the land's most fair?" And the mirror replied, "My lady queen, you are fair, 'tis true, but Snowdrop is fairer far than you. Snowdrop, who dwells with the 7 little men, is as fair as you, as fair again." When the queen heard these words she was nearly struck dumb with horror, for the mirror always spoke the truth, and she knew now that the huntsman must have deceived her, and that Snowdrop was still alive. She pondered day and night how she might destroy her, for as long as she felt she had a rival in the land, her jealous heart left her no rest. At last she hit upon a plan. She stained her face and dressed herself up as an old peddler wife, so that she was quite unrecognizable. In her guise she went over the 7 hills till she came to the house of the 7 dwarfs. Then she knocked at the door, calling out at the same time, "Fine wares to sell, fine wares to sell." Snowdrop peeped out the window and called out, "Good day, mother, what have you to sell?" "Good wares, fine wares," she answered, "laces of every shade and description," and she held one up that was made of some gay-colored silk. "Surely I can let the honest woman in," thought Snowdrop, so she unbarred the door and bought the pretty lace. "Good gracious, child," said the old woman, "what a figure you've got! Come, I'll lace you up properly for once." Snowdrop, suspecting no evil, stood before her and let her lace her bodice up, but the old woman laced her so quickly and so tightly that it took Snowdrop's breath away, and she fell down dead. "Now you are no longer the fairest," said the wicked old woman, and then she hastened away. In the evening the 7 dwarfs came home, and you may think what a fright they got when they saw their dear Snowdrop lying on the floor, as still and motionless as a dead person. They lifted her up tenderly, and when they saw how tightly laced she was, they cut the lace in two, and she began to breathe a little, and gradually came back to life. When the dwarfs heard what had happened, they said, "Depend upon it, the old peddler wife was none other than the old queen. In the future you must be sure to let no one in if we are not at home." As soon as the wicked old queen got home she went straight to the mirror and said, Mirror, mirror, hanging there, who in all the land's most fair?